appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of 8 News Now or Nexstar Media Group.
Some of the opposition to that want to propose cutting Meals on Wheels or cutting money that we're putting into education or mental health.
Tonight on Politics Now, Governor Steve Sisolak sits down with us to explain why he wants to extend sunsetting taxes and more.
There's two different stories.
Putting cameras in special needs classrooms, why parents say they need it, and the school district says it has concerns about that proposal.
What he failed to do was address the fact that his policies are continuing to separate children from their parents.
Nevada's congressional delegation reacts to President Trump's State of the Union speech and calls for unity.
From 8 News Now, this is Politics Now with Steve Sebelius and Patrick Walker.
Well, the 2019 legislative session is underway, although it started under some unusual and chilly circumstances. Thanks for joining us. I'm Patrick Walker.
And I'm Steve Sebelius. This heavy snow that you see behind me cut the first day of the session short. Governor Sisolak closed state offices in Carson City and around Reno and Douglas County. Now, inside the building, the session started off as usual, with many of the lawmakers taking a positive and bipartisan tone. But next week, things will get more heated as the legislature takes up the issue of gun background checks with a bill that's expected to easily pass both houses.
Well, Steve and I were standing in the middle of all that snow in Carson City for the start of the session, but we went inside to sit down with new Governor Steve Sisolak.
We asked him about taxes, paying for his plans, and a letter that he wrote to the Trump administration after the Energy Department secretly shipped plutonium into Nevada despite a state lawsuit seeking to stop that transport.
Talk to me a little bit about one of the major efforts that you've had to undertake so far is trying to deal with this plutonium shipment that came in from the Department of Energy. So another effort by your administration to try to stop any future shipments. What is this looking like to you? What do you think the danger is still to Nevada, and what are the options that the state has?
It's a big concern, obviously, of mine. Before we even got here, before I got elected, the shipment had already come to Nevada, and I've had numerous conversations with my predecessor, with Governor Sandoval, and what he was aware of, what he wasn't aware of, and with our different agencies as it relates to that. It's a big, big concern of mine, what's exactly out there, what's been stored, what their plans are for the material that's there, if they're planning on bringing any more. I've talked to everybody on our federal delegation as it relates to this, and it's kind of hard to nail these folks down, but we're going to continue to pursue every option that's available to me and to our delegation to prevent this from happening.
This is a little bit different than the Yucca Mountain effort, obviously, because this is already existing federal property. This is the Department of Energy doing their transfers. Does that limit the scope of what you can do, in your opinion? Well,
I think that it presents some unique challenges as it relates to that. And the other challenge we've got is, as I said, what's already there and what's going to happen to what's there. It's a secretive situation. There's no way to really get in and audit what's available, what's been there, what's been placed there, and what their long-term plans are. And we've got to work on the best representation that they make to us, and it's a good faith discussion. Unfortunately, this came as a big, big surprise to me and to Governor Sandoval. This came as a big surprise. Now, I understand that they're claiming there's some security involved with it, national security and whatnot, but I think it's incumbent upon the federal government to at least let us know what's going on.
And Representative Titus told me last week it could be up to 6 tons of additional plutonium that needs to go somewhere, potentially here.
Well, according to the District Court South Carolina decision, there's 6 more tons going to have to be disposed of, and I certainly hope that's not coming here. But there's no way of knowing. There's no way of knowing what's already there. And it's a big concern. I mean, it's a concern that it's being stored there. It's a concern about how it got there, the travel route, and how safe that is when it's being transported.
I want to switch to the topic of taxes and funding some of the initiatives that you're pushing forward. A lot of support so far from both sides of the aisle talking about not increasing taxes, but we're starting to hear a few rumblings from Republicans about the idea that not allowing a tax to sunset is effectively to them a tax increase. How do you respond to that?
A tax was put in place years ago. I mean, the sunset that's extended is not a new tax. It's just extending a current tax that was meant to sunset. That's not the same as a new tax. And we've had some discussions. I'm sure we're going to continue to have discussions as it relates to that, and hope I can get everybody on the same page.
So to you, this is more of a, Nevadans are used to paying what they've been paying, so they'll just continue at the current rate.
These are taxes that are currently in place, that people are paying today, and they'll continue to pay them. And if someone wants to propose, if some of the opposition to that want to propose cutting Meals on Wheels or cutting money that we're putting into education or mental health or any of the other programs that we've decided to step up the funding, let them tell me what they want to cut.
Governor, you promised back in 2017 when you were running that you were going to get collective bargaining rights for state employees. You kept that promise by putting that into the State of the State speech, but there wasn't a time by which that should be implemented. How soon do you think that should be implemented? This session?
Well, I don't know if it can be practically done this session. I mean, with the, the intricacies of dealing with it. I mean, I'm dealing with working with both Senator Atkinson and Speaker Farson to come up with a plan. I mean, they've been spearheading this effort. It has to be implemented over phases. It certainly can't be done all at one time. And we're going to work through that.
The Republicans say that is going to increase cost to the state, labor cost to the state, so that in future years this could be quite unmanageable. Do you agree with them at all? Do they have any kind of a point there?
Well, no, I think it's certainly going to get some of our state workers wages that they've been deserving for a long time. I came from Clark County where we have collective bargaining, and it's not bankrupted the county. It's not taking up the entire county budget and, oh, woe me, the sky is falling, as some people are saying. The pay disparity that exists between local government and state government is enormous. And it's something that came over a period of time. It's one of the reasons it's difficult to attract the best people in state government sometimes, because the pays just aren't commensurate. So I think it's something that's long overdue.
Yeah. Would you say that your experience in local government dealing with collective bargaining there influences your opinion about how it can be implemented and the realistic chances of it being implemented and the practical applications of how it's going to be implemented?
I do. I think that the experience and the background that I got at Clark County as it related to collective bargaining, and we dealt with several unions in Clark County, that had collective bargaining, and I think that it's a give and take type situation. I mean, it's not going to be a catastrophe, as some people are laying out the prognosis for. I think it's something that is long overdue. It'll be phased in over a period of time. This isn't something that's just going to flip the switch and one day it's going to happen and wages are going to go up enormously. It's going to be done over time, and these are going to be negotiated benefits.
And you can watch that whole interview on LasVegasNow.com. Look for the political news tab under News.
Well, President Trump gave his State of the Union speech to a divided Congress this week. The members of Southern Nevada's delegation are all Democrats. They told us they were wary of his promises of bipartisanship.
I'm skeptical on some issues, but hopeful that we can work together, whether it's infrastructure, paid family leave, eliminating HIV and AIDS.
Congresswoman Susie Lee invited a veteran hurt by for-profit college to the State of the Union as her guest, while Congresswoman Dina Titus left her seat empty in honor of the victims of the 1 October attack. Congress will have until February 15th, that's next Friday, to work out a deal to avoid another government shutdown.
Well, putting cameras in special needs classrooms.
In my opinion, the only thing that the school district is protecting is themselves.
Parents tell us why they think it is best for the kids and why the school district says they have some reservations about it. That's next.
Try my $4.99 sourdough patty melt.
Welcome back to Politics Now.
Well, some parents of special needs students claim that their children are being mistreated in school, but they're not getting any answers from school staff. Now legislation is being introduced to put cameras in classrooms with special needs students.
The I-Team's Vanessa Murphy dug a little bit deeper to find out why the issue is so controversial.
6-year-old Iker has special needs. He's nonverbal. So when he came home from school with injuries like these, he couldn't tell his dad, Francisco Flores, what happened.
So you still don't know about the wound on the arm?
Mm-mm.
You still don't know what happened about him losing a tooth? And you still don't know what those 2 marks are on his back?
No.
Over the past 6 months,
the abuse wasn't just one time.
The I-Team has interviewed several parents.
There's 2 different stories
with the same problem.
I was feel guilty because I was taking her to school and I don't know that she was going to be safe.
Their children with special needs like autism can't express what's happening at school. The parents suspect they're being mistreated, and they're not getting answers from staff.
I think it's time.
State Senator Scott Hammond wants cameras in classrooms. The Republican is co-sponsoring a bill with State Senator Mo Dennis, a Democrat, to make it a requirement in public school classes where more than 50% of the students have special needs. A similar bill was introduced in 2017, but it was never even voted on.
Perhaps it was politics, and perhaps it was just, some people were worried about the cost, but we'll find out come this session. Other than that, I don't know what it could have prevented it, because it's needed, it's necessary now.
Senator Hammond's bill does not yet specify a cost.
We do have concerns about unfunded mandates, and we know that cameras in classrooms will cost millions of dollars.
Kirsten Searer is a spokeswoman for the Clark County School District.
We also have some legal concerns as well, because it's not just about the one student in concern. There's privacy concerns for the staff members in the classroom, for the other students in the classroom.
Marianne Lanuti is an attorney who has represented families of special needs students.
In my opinion, the only thing that the school district is protecting is themselves.
The I-Team has learned since 2015 alone, CCSD has spent more than $1.9 million on lawsuits the district has settled involving special needs students. Those are taxpayer dollars.
Could the cost be offset with litigation and cameras?
Well, I think that's something that we could look at, but I think that you can't underestimate the cost of these cameras.
Searer acknowledges the district is seeing an increase in litigation surrounding special needs students.
I think even with, say, a camera in a classroom, one could argue that maybe the cost would be even higher, because a camera might reveal things in litigation that has some kind of financial value to it.
John Velardita is the executive director of the Clark County Education Association, which represents teachers. He suggests using money that would pay for cameras to instead hire more special ed teachers. And he has 3 main concerns about the legislation.
Privacy issue, due process issue, and a fiscal impact.
If everything is happening in the classroom as it should be, what's the problem with having the cameras?
Well, one, I think you should ask a parent, because we've heard loud and clear from parents that they don't want their child being videotaped without their permission.
But parents we talked with do want cameras.
What would you say to parents of children who are nonverbal and can't speak about what may have happened to them at school, who say having these cameras is a no-brainer?
I think they have a good point. It's very hard to disagree with them.
Both the union and the district say they're open to talking about cameras in special needs classrooms, but they also admit it's an idea that is controversial. To these parents, though, cameras mean one thing: safety for their children. Vanessa Murphy, 8 News Now.
Well, the school district did supply a fiscal note to Senator Hammond's bill, estimating the cost of installing the cameras to be $12.5 million on average per school year. We also asked Governor Sisolak about the issue.
I don't know if we could isolate what rooms they should be in, if it just be some or should be all rooms. I don't have an answer for that till I get some input from some of the experts in it. I don't know where people stand on this. the privacy of some of the students, how the parents would feel if they were constantly on camera, and they should certainly have a great deal of input as it relates to whether or not they're filmed and what happens to that film once it's made, and how long it's kept, and who has access to it, or those sort of things. And because that could be misused as well, so I'd have to wait and see how it all plays out.
Well, fixing gun background checks.
There's been a huge shift in public opinion. Politicians have picked up on that.
Face-Off panel takes on the first big issue that lawmakers are expected to tackle next on Politics Now.
And will payday loans get a big interest rate reduction? The bill that would put a cap on interest rates, that's next.
You're watching Politics Now.
Well, we told you earlier that gun background checks will be the very first bill the legislature will take up this session. We put that issue before our face-off panel. Here is former Nevada Republican Party Chairwoman Amy Tarkanian and editor of the Nevada Current, Hugh Jackson.
Amy, this is something really that Democrats could do without Republican support.
And they will. The initiative was passed by a majority of Nevadans, so it makes sense to actually bring this back up. I'm not sure if this is the correct way, because this is something that a incoming legislature after this one, if it were then to turn the tides, they could basically remove it.
Right, going through the legislative route.
A lot stronger, right? But with that initiative, from what I understand, it was the FBI that they were saying that they could not fully implement the background checks. So that's why at that time, Attorney General Laxalt and Governor Sandoval weren't able to move forward.
Hugh, one of the things that was pointed out is, well, hey, it was a majority. I mean, it passed by about 1%, but a majority of the voters wanted to implement it. It's a priority of the governor to get this, and the legislature to get this going now, so instead of waiting to go the constitutional route and going the initiative route, they just want to do the fix now. Is this the best solution, or is this a short-term solution until they can get it back out to the voters? What do you think about the path forward for this?
Well, I think that there's enough stuff in the Nevada Constitution already. It's ridiculously long. We always seem to want to go to make everything a constitutional amendment. We can do this through statute. I think maybe the more interesting thing to me about all this, though, as you point out, it passed with the voters in 2016. Not by a huge margin, but it passed. And the shift in public opinion on gun rights just generally, during this last campaign, you saw Democratic candidates, including Sisolak, Attorney General, everyone that's running for legislature, everyone that was running for federal offices on the Democratic side, running on strong stronger gun safety rules and regulations. That's something that you would not have seen even 7 years ago, 6 years ago. There's been a huge shift in public opinion. Politicians have picked up on that. This is not the only gun safety measure that the legislature will be dealing with this session.
You can throw in Republican candidate Danny Tarkanian, who actually came out in favor of banning bump stocks, including certain measures of background checks, as long as there were more common sense exceptions. For example, if you wanted to gift a gun to a family member, or if you were going to go hunting or to a shooting range with a friend and allow them to borrow one of your guns. But he's right. This has definitely been quite a surprise in turn of events for the way that we view background checks.
On this issue, perhaps maybe unlike some other issues that come up, I think this is a sincere impulse on the part of politicians and the electorate. Just as from a rational point of view, more gun safety legislation is something that a lot of people have been wanting for a long time, but politically it was very, very difficult to say so out loud and in public. And now that they are unleashed to say that, I think that it is, in fact, their true sentiment that they would truly like to do this.
Well, the panel also debated Trump's State of the Union address and the scandal plaguing the top leaders in the state of Virginia. That's all on LasVegasNow.com. Click on the news link and look for the political news tab. Patrick?
All right, Steve, this is Eye on Carson City, where we will keep you up to date on some of the things that are going on up at the legislature. The state Senate is making a rule change for lawmakers who abstain from a vote. They must now give a complete disclosure of the conflict of interest that is causing them to abstain. Disclosures rules have been suspended or winked at in past sessions, some of the past sessions. Well, a few bills got their first hearings this week. Senate Bill 100 would allow spouses of active duty military members to get their teaching licenses approved faster. That one is sponsored by the Senate Education Committee. And a proposal to cap interest rates on payday loans moved forward. Assembly Bill 118 would cap rates at 36% annually. Many of those current rates are 500% or higher. The bill's sponsor is Democrat Heidi Swank of Henderson. She says it would put Nevada in line with the Federal Military Act, which keeps interest rates down for active duty service members. Steve, this is something that we have seen a lot of bills aimed at, trying to regulate and cap these interest levels on payday loans, but they haven't gone anywhere to becoming law. Do you think there's a better chance this session that something will happen?
Yeah, I do think there's a better chance this session. I mean, this issue has been around for a very long time. Former Speaker Barbara Buckley, who was Speaker from 2007 to 2011, was trying to deal with this issue. And as we know, we've had him on the show. State Treasurer Dan Schwartz had some bills to kind of deal with this. But I think now with the Democratic majority in both houses, the Democratic governor, the chances are very good it'll pass this session.
All right, well, showing off our beautiful state, we'll show you some of the amazing photos on exhibit and display up at the legislature. That's next.
Prestige, Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge.
You're watching Politics Now.
The Nevada Arts Council has a Home Means Nevada photo exhibit in the Legislative Building in Carson City. We had a chance to take a look at it. It features the work of 15 contemporary photographers at our national parks and historic sites.
Well, their work is inspired by famous artwork and photographs that spurred protections for those places. The exhibit will also take a trip around Nevada when the legislative session ends.
Yeah, a couple of those are down on the first floor and then up in the Senate hallways in the second floor if you're up there to take a look. All right, this is What to Watch, where we're talking about many bills that have yet to be written. So far, we're closely watching one, and that would have the language of the gun background check bill. The goal to fix a flaw that required the FBI to run free background checks, which the agency refused to do. Requiring a state background check comes with a fee, which might trigger a requirement that would require that 2/3 vote.
And Attorney General Aaron Ford is giving his agency's overview to the Judiciary Committee on Monday. Now, this time, the Attorney General is actually expected to show up and testify, which is something former Attorney General Adam Laxalt, well, he never did that during his term. So we'll see Senator Ford there.
Yeah, and that is coming up very quickly, as you mentioned, next week.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, next week is when things really get started with the multiplicity of bills, everything going through. You're starting to get hearings, and that gun background check bill will definitely be the highlight of that second week of the session.
And I think you'll see folks down here at the Grant Sawyer building as well that are going and testifying. That's a bill that's got broad interest all across the state. It's a controversial one.
Very, very controversial, but I think they'll be able to, with a Democratic majority, I think they'll be able to get that passed. So. Well, thanks for watching Politics Now. You can email me at ssibelius@lasvegasnow.com.